We're going to hear from Carrie Bruss, WDI country contact for the USA, and Megan Blake, WDI country contact for Australia, with a week report.
First, I'm pleased to report that WDI USA is organizing 2 back-to-back events to take place next month in Seattle, Washington, as oral arguments are heard in the case of Olympus Spa et al. Versus Armstrong. This case, currently before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and for which WDI USA filed an amicus brief, centers on whether a female-only nude spa in Washington state can exclude men. The first event is a panel discussion to be held at the Seattle Public Library Auditorium on Sunday evening, November 17th, and will feature Kara Dansky, Amos Sousa, April Morrow, and others speaking out against gender identity ideology and its harmful impacts in the state. The goal for this panel is to bring attention and support to the Olympus Spa case being heard the following day. The second event is a rally on the front steps of the William K. Nakamura Courthouse on Monday morning, November 18th, directly following the oral arguments. Advanced registration is required to attend the library panel, but not the rally at the courthouse. On Thursday, we circulated an email encouraging interested signatories to attend the events and also broadcast a graphic promoting them on our social media channels. Next, Kara alerted me to an article published this morning in the Washington Post decrying the fact that Trump and other GOP candidates are pouring millions into what the Post characterizes as attack ads, tying Democrats to trans rights in swing states as part of their final pitch to persuadable voters before the November 5th election. The piece suggests that the tactic will fail for a variety of reasons, even as it acknowledges there are signs that the ads have Democrats on the defensive. Kara responded to the article by submitting an excellent comment, which was published, which reads, "Feminists have been telling the Democrats in power how their embrace of gender identity harms women and girls since at least August of 2016, when the Women's Liberation Front sued the Obama administration for redefining sex to include gender identity under Title IX. A radical feminist lesbian explained to the Democrat majority House Judiciary Committee live and in person on C-SPAN in April of 2019. The U.S. chapter of Women's Declaration International has been explaining this in no uncertain terms since 2020. It goes on and on and on, basically saying how they're just being ignored. And in August, she published an open letter to Kamala Harris asking her to say at the DNC that a woman is an adult human female. She didn't. Quoting again, rank and file Democrats, including many lesbians and gay men, have been screaming about this for years. The WDI USA Lesbian, Black Women's, and Detransitioned Women's caucuses have spelled out their critiques of gender identity clearly, and she provides a link. I personally know lifelong Democrats who are voting for Trump for this reason, among others. The Democrats in power have ignored our pleas. They are perfectly happy to sacrifice women and girls at the altar of gender identity, and this Republican onslaught of ads is the inevitable result. Women are female and men are male. It's not complicated. Signed, a lifelong registered Democratic adult human female. In a new legal development out of Texas, Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed a suit against University of Texas Southwestern pediatrician Dr. May C. Lau, alleging she violated state law by prescribing at least 21 minor females testosterone after the state's ban of the medicalization of minors went into effect in September of 2023. The suit also alleges that Dr. Lau deceptively prescribed puberty blockers by entering a billing code of an endocrine disorder not otherwise specified, rather than a code for gender dysphoria. which the suit asserts is a violation of the statute prohibiting false, misleading, or deceptive acts of practices in the conduct of any trade or commerce. The AG described the suit as the state's first enforcement action under the new law. The suit seeks over $1 million in civil penalties, attorney's fees, litigation expenses, restitution, and costs. And last but not least, in yet another exclusive, Redux reveals that the father and custodial parent of Maël Jacques, the male athlete who has accumulated multiple titles in girls' high school track in the state of New Hampshire, has been sentenced to 60 months in federal prison for the distribution of child pornography. Mark Jacques first came to the attention of federal authorities in February of 2022 when they began investigating a number of reports made through CyberTip, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's centralized reporting system, by Kick Messenger, a freeware messaging platform notorious for facilitating child sexual abuse. Kick reported that in November and December of 2021, a Kick user going by the username Wayne9985 uploaded 49 files to other Kick users via private chat messages that appeared to depict child sexual abuse material. Further investigation revealed that between 2018 and 2022, Jacques' residential IP address in Newbury, New Hampshire, was reported in more than 40 cyber tips. Upon examination of his electronic devices, Jacques was found to have stored over 200 files containing child pornography. In one of the videos described by prosecutors, a female child was seen being orally raped. Unsurprisingly, Jacques, as well as both of his sons, wrote letters to the court requesting that he receive probation in lieu of a prison sentence in order that he might continue his trans advocacy work. Sentences occurred on September 9th, though Jacques is being allowed to remain free until December 2nd, when he is expected to surrender himself to federal custody. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
In Australia, the New South Wales Omnibus Equality Bill passed Parliament on the 17th of October. It passed the lower house in the morning after the Premier announced his support for it at the opening of a preschool. The second reading speech was conducted in the upper house at 3:02 p.m. and then it passed without amendment at 8:30 p.m. This is a very large omnibus bill that covers a whole range of topics, from changing birth certificates on effectively self-ID through prostitution, surrogacy, the ability of prison inmates to access gender-affirming medicine, etc., etc. No committee stage was held in the upper house. The results from the lower house committee, that the public largely rejected many of the gender aspects, were not fully acted on. Some amendments were made in the passage through the lower house, so the passed bill is not exactly the same as the first draft. For instance, the ability of 16-year-old children and 17-year-old children to change their birth certificates, the sex and name on their birth certificates, without parent knowledge was removed. The right to gender-affirming medicine was dropped. Street prostitution was not in the end fully decriminalised, and some protections against discrimination in schools and workplaces were dropped. The largely self-ID change of birth certificates remains, along with recognition of parentage in overseas surrogacy purchases, among other things. Some members of Parliament made excellent speeches against the bill. Rachel Wong from Women's Forum Australia has extracted, I think, all of them and posted them on x.com if you want to go to her page and view them, share them, support the members of Parliament who supported women. Meanwhile, Libby Mettam, leader of the Western Australian Liberal Party, has promised to repeal the Western Australian legislation on birth certificate changes that was passed earlier this year if they are elected to government. The next WA election is coming up in March next year. Doctors and medical scientists, including fairly well-known ones like T.J. Jack Martin, Emeritus Professor of Medicine at the University of Melbourne, they have signed an open letter so far from close to 50 doctors, including paediatricians and child and adolescent psychiatrists, that's critical of a government evidence check, it was called, published in September, that's been used to justify the expansion of child gender affirmation clinics in New South Wales against the Cass report findings. The letter has been launched by GenSpect Australia, and I'll put links to both it and the evidence check that they're saying is flawed. Dr. Gillian Spencer, child psychiatrist, is one signatory. She's currently involved in her own legal proceedings over her dismissal from a Queensland hospital due to her refusal to uncritically affirm children patients. Her trial date is not yet set, but we'll keep an eye on that. The ABC, the Australian national broadcaster, is running a survey to ask women for their views on women's sports, including whether men should compete with women. They have defined women in the survey as women, non-binary, and gender diverse athletes, including trans women. So they're basically asking everyone for their views on women's sports. ABC Sport and Deakin University have partnered to produce it, and it's based on the BBC's Elite British Sportswomen Study. So I'll put a link to it in the chat. You can also email them a submission, and hopefully the number of women responding to them will be greater than the number of non-women. Gaynor and the Minister for Communications was determined by the Federal Court on the 14th of October. This was a man who challenged the classification of the book Genderqueer as unrestricted, so he said it was not appropriate for children. The court determined that the board did in fact ignore, overlook or misunderstand relevant material. The Gaynor alleged that the book depicted and promoted pedophilia, which was a pretty fair description of it. The board received public submissions, but it ignored them because it said they were overwhelmingly anti-LGBTQIA+. And when the court looked at it, they found that only maybe 11% of the submissions by number, so less than 1% of the people who actually responded, could possibly be described in that way. So that's not overwhelmingly. And they ignored other things like the depiction of a sexual relationship between a teacher and a student. So the decision of the board has been quashed, and it's been directed to reassess the book in light of the proper principles determined by the court. And lastly, the matter between Member of Parliament, Victorian Parliament, Moira Deeming, and Leader of the Opposition, State Opposition, John Pesutto, continues. That's the defamation matter in connection with her organising and attendance at the Let Women Speak rally last year. It's been going for a few weeks now, and closing arguments are currently underway. We're expecting a judgment faster than the usual timeline in December. The Tribunal Tweets page on the case is fantastic. So if you're not able to watch the live stream because they take it down as soon as court closes each day, then you can have a look at the Tribunal Tweets page. Thank you.